All right, what's going on, DPL fans? We are back this time with a new addition here to the stream. It's going to be the DPL recap here. And oh my God, I can hear myself twice because there's no delay on stream. I need to mute that immediately. All right. So
Yeah.
that's going to take some time to get used to. But hey, hope you guys are all having a great day today. There are no games to be played, but instead we actually get to talk about what we've been able to see so far from both Saturday and Sunday's play days in both the upper and lower brackets. Starting out with the upper bracket, but I've got both Boxi and EkaZo here by my side. We'll start here with my main man on the casting booth, normally Boxi. How you doing today?
I mean, I'm doing fine. I'm doing fine. I've honestly slept for most of the day. The weekend's been kind of exhausting, but other than that, like we're chilling. I'm super excited to be here. Like kind of have a chill post play day session. How about you?
Yeah, I'm doing fine. EK?
I'm doing all right. Just chilling.
Okay, chilling. Or chilling.
Nice.
Yeah.
Love to see it. So might as well go and take a look at the upper bracket first and foremost, just to kind of see what actually happened for both the on-stream and off-stream games. I think if we go and look at, the tournament lineup here, GB was actually in first in their group. They ended up winning out both of their best of ones, then followed up by Gnomes and Bingus, who received a win, yet also drew. Then LCG in fourth place with a win and a loss. And then both Rise and Yakuza are in fifth and sixth, the bottom two with no wins in their back pockets. Pretty unfortunate, but there's still plenty of other play days to not have just losses in your book here.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. I think there's quite a few things to know. First of all, I think the standings are kind of taking shape already. Like, we're definitely going to see GB at the top. Then I do think Gnomes, Bingus will be, the contenders for the second, third spot. So I think that's kind of spot on. The lower half of the scoreboard, though, I think will change throughout the season. Yakuza, yes, they went 0-2 on their first play day. We've casted both of their games on the main channel, if you remember, fellow. But it's worth mentioning that they played both Bingus and Yakuza, who are currently first and second, meaning that they've gotten their hard matches out of the way so far. So I do think Yakuza climb up a little bit, and I'm still curious to see what Rise can actually do because again, they are a very new team, right? But on the other hand, the season's only 3 weeks long, so they really don't have much time to stop their bleeding and step it up a little bit.
Yeah, fair enough. EK, what are your thoughts so far on the upper bracket?
I mean, I think it was pretty. I think it's pretty. I mean, considering everything, I think everything's going pretty well. I mean, obviously I'm on GB, so I mean we're at the top right now it seems, and Gnomes being is tied. I mean, what kind of struck me is surprising. Is like usually I would consider Bingus a lot better than Gnomes, but they're able to. I mean, Gnomes were able to tie with Bingus, so I mean, kind of I would say, sort of a unexpected circumstance. But I think everything else is also kind of surprising. Like so Yakuza at the bottom right now. I don't think they weren't able to they were able to win one.
No. 7-4, 7-4.
Yeah. When usually they're a second place team, but now it's not a great start for them, is what I gotta say. But,
I mean,
yeah, fair enough. I think yes,
Yeah.
Boxy?
Sorry.
Yeah, no,
I just wanted to
no.
interject. The biggest surprise for me personally was LCG 7-1ing Rise because LCG, if as you say we keep it a $1.50, they're usually like kind of at the bottom of the scoreboard, but they've come out swinging against Rise, and yes, they did get 7-1 by LCG or by Global Breakout, excuse me, like right next game, but LCG still put on a good show against Rise. We've seen a few clutches come out from them. We've seen them play like I don't think we have before, so. I do want to see where LCG go throughout the season as well.
Fair enough. One thing to note for both Gnomes and the Bingus matchup, I think one of the biggest things that was probably a reason why they actually lost and it came down to a tie was probably because of A, how well Reptar did, and then B, how poorly Gravy did. Because normally he's like that top damage dealer, or he's kind of like in the upper echelon there for Bingus. Not to say that they have, bad teammates. No. But he's normally just like the guy that gets rowdy. He plays for those really high impact attempts, especially like the full auto, for example. But he was bottom of the barrel, barely scraping at 1k damage. That might have been like a main reason why, to be honest, because if you can't play into your role that well, especially as like a high damage dealer, it definitely shows.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I
building
mean,
off on oh, sorry, but
no,
building
no,
off
go
of
ahead,
that,
go ahead.
I think one of the main things also is like I remember Josh was complaining the day before, and he's on Bingus, and I think he was complaining also that you guys don't know his name, even though he's only recently come back to the community. But Josh was saying the game is so early, so he's just going to sleep in. So I think that could be a factor that led to the
It's
tie.
true.
So, but I don't know. Yeah, Boxy, you were going to
Fair
say something?
enough.
I mean, no, I was pretty much gonna say what you were saying. I was just gonna agree with fellow there. Nothing really significant to add, but I mean, I don't know. I think we kind of covered the standings, so I guess we want to look at next week's matchups, or do we
Yeah,
want to go
the
through lower league first?
well, of course, yeah, lower league, of course. That's what you meant originally. We can take a look at lower league and then probably like go look at stats for a little while, perhaps as well to kind of like deep dive the actual score lines, whatever one we'd want to do first and foremost.
Um,
Probably just stick to upper bracket first. We like briefly talked about two of the games and then that was it.
Yeah.
I feel like we can get a little more out of that for sure. So we talked about Gnomes versus Bingus, how they're probably going to be at each other's throats for a majority of the next couple of weeks because they are those top teams, but GB's still there as well. You mentioned Yakuza earlier, Boxy. Yeah, I think they will see much more success in week number 2 and 3. I mean, obviously, with losing 2 games in a row, you're bound to see more success, pardon, especially if you get that win. But also, much easier competition, most likely. We have seen kind of newer roster formations appear besides Bingus, and they just haven't been fully up to snuff. I feel like a good example as well, even for the Gnomes, might possibly be not having Mace. Having that full brother
Absolutely.
duo. Mace was always an outstanding player. Not having him on the board anymore could be a big problem later in the next set of play days for the Gnomes. And then also for Yakuza, yeah, just being able to play against like people like Rise, for example, that should be much easier for them moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Do you just like want to go through all the scores from all the matches, maybe, so we kind of touch on everything? And I guess I'm just gonna start reading them out like one by one. If you want to stop on any match comment at all, just let me know to stop, and that's it, I guess. But Rise, Gnomes won that.
Oh my god, that never
He
gets
froze
old.
it.
I
All
hate it
right.
here. I absolutely hate it here. Okay, so I guess you heard me say like I'm just gonna read out the scores. If you guys
Yeah,
wanna
we
touch
did hear
upon any
that.
match, especially just let me know. Okay, so round one we had Gnomes versus Rise. Gnomes 7-0'd Rise, and we've mentioned how Rise is a new roster. We've mentioned that time and time again, and how they need to slowly but surely find their rhythm. But the 7-0 still I think was unexpected. Second up, we had Gnomes versus Bingus, and well, it was a tie. We already talked about that. It's probably Gravy underperforming, and then also Raptor doing extremely well, if I remember correctly. Next up was LCG versus Rise, 7-1 to LCG, and that's one that I've touched upon. I felt like that was a kind of a big surprise because that means that in all of their 2 matches, Rise only won 1 round and lost 14, which is kind of mind blowing. I mean, what do you guys think?
Yeah, no, that's a pretty deep stat line differential. And again, their first matchup when they were 7-0, I think the best damage total they had was like 840. And then if
Mhm.
we look at the match I just was looking at a second ago, what was it, LCG versus Rise? That game wasn't that much better. Like you said, only a singular round win um, for Rise, and then it was 1K damage, with the second closest follow up was 650 by Robbie. So just not being able to win enough gunfights, in all honesty, that just was their biggest problem based on the stat line there.
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay.
EK?
Ikazo?
Oh, looking at I mean, look at the right side. I mean, they did infinitely better than their previous game, where they,
I
I mean,
mean,
at least they
that's
got
true.
around.
That's true. They did step it up a little
But
bit.
yeah.
I mean, towards the end of the season, they'll be losing like 7-5 if they keep it up at this trend. Um, no, but for real, let's keep going with the matches. Next up was LCG versus Global Breakout, and was 7-1 for Global Breakout. I think that was pretty much expected. I don't think there's much to add. Global Breakout has just been, so dominant for such a long time, and you've recently won the major. I don't know. I keep saying they. Obviously, you're the IGL, and a lot
Yeah,
of
how
that
could you
goes to
forget?
you.
EK beat the best team of Katura in the Winter
Oh
Major.
my
How could you
god.
forget
Yeah.
that? I know
This
Argo
again.
didn't forget that.
Not this again, man.
Bring it up every
Okay.
single time when I
Oh
talk to him, which
god.
Oh
is basically
man.
every day.
Okay, then Bingus Yakuza 7-4, and that is the one that, Fellow Knight got the joy of watching. And it initially was a back and forth. For the first half, I think we actually ended up on 4-2 and then 5-4 after another split. Like it was pretty close up until the end, but then in the end, Bingus just kind of ended up prevailing, being the stronger team. So, Fellow, you've casted that match with me. Do you have any takeaways on that one?
Say, I think I had a couple of notes. In general, coordination was kind of a struggle for both teams at certain points. It's the growing pains,
Mhm.
especially for Bingus. They have a bunch of really good players, but something that was discussed a couple of times, especially when they just began scrimming, was like that IGL role. I'm hoping that that is no longer an issue. In terms of coordination, there were some good points, but also some major issues as well. So I think once again, just in time, Bingus will definitely adapt to those problems, and then probably just have someone be that headstrong player who might not be able to do a bunch of damage all the time, but they can just sit back, kind of breathe in, and understand the situation that's kind of unfolding right in front of their eyes. For Yakuza, man, I cannot remember how exactly they ended up losing. I know it was 7-4. I have the notes, but I think I just kind of gave up halfway through. It ended up turning into like a stomp for Bingus. So
Yeah.
maybe say I did have a couple of notes like playing numbers. That was for Bingus, waiting for fallback. So yeah, I guess my earlier statement of the coordination, how it was a little bit better for Bingus and not the same for Yakuza. I think that was like our biggest takeaway from the match, and that was like frankly it.
Yeah, I mean, just thinking back of the match, I remember specifically you and I talking about how Bengals, they were just, very good on their splits and on their rotations, and especially on attack.
Hmm.
Like, that late blow on Bank comes to mind, where they were just like, I forgot the details of the round, but it was like I was watching them. I was like, oh my god, like these guys are completely separated. There's three on one side of the map, two on the other one, and they're just working like a very well oiled machine. And I was like super surprised because, like you said, they've also had some coordination troubles. But I think when it was going right for them, it was going super well. It just those off rounds that they've had, especially I think it was in the second half because they started their match off with a 3, if not a 4-0, and then they slowly let Yakuza catch up. Um, so I feel like their beginning and their end were really good, but they kind of fell off in the middle, and I'm super excited to see them, in week 2. But do we have anything else to say about this matchup, or do we just finish it up with the last one in round 1?
So I don't know if like I want to pick at EK's brain to maybe ask him what he thinks the biggest issue is for Bingus as of now, unless he wasn't really
Bingus.
able to watch that much for them.
I mean, I didn't really get a chance to watch, but Bingus versus. I mean, I think Bingus is pretty strong. I think they're probably number 2 right now. Maybe Yakuza number
Okay.
3. And
Okay.
obviously, I'm kind of biased, but GB on number 1. But yeah, but I think Bingus is pretty strong. It's just they need more
And
time. They are very new. They need more time to just get together, understand each other.
and uh, and then they say we're biased, fellow. Shaking my head. Anyways, last match of round 1 was Global Breakout versus Yakuza, where Global Breakout also ended up winning, and it was again a 7-4. So that meant the second 7-4 loss in a row for Yakuza. What do we think about that one? That's also one that we casted. I think Global Breakout were much more dominant against Yakuza than Bingus were, but we already covered about or why Bingus are playing, like they are. I think they're still catching their rhythm as well. What do we think about Global Breakout versus Yakuza, though?
I mean,
Yeah,
I
I would,
was.
maybe, eh, I think I had like the same
Eh,
gripes with the Bingus and then Yakuza. Like they just didn't improve at all from what they demonstrated. I think they had slightly different stat lines. Like I'll go look over the GB and Yakuza game real quick, where we had
mhm,
Render do 2.3k damage, pretty impressive, and then Ghetto did 1.5k. Everyone else did all right. I mean, the biggest concern I feel like is with Jet, because normally he's like, I can't remember if he was still mopping or not, like last matchup, for
yeah,
example. But
he
normally he's
was.
like kind of like that super weapon player, especially now that Louis not on their team. Or no, was Louis on Gnomes? I cannot fully remember.
Gnomes, gnomes,
Yeah, he
gnomes.
was on Gnomes. That's right. Oh yeah, we had that conversation when we were casting Louis in
Casted
the lower
Louis.
bracket game, and I was right.
We'll
I
get
was
to that.
right then, but now I am unfortunately slightly incorrect. Thankfully, I was able to bounce back. And then the biggest for Yakuza game, I think the stat lines were kind of the same, except Ghetto only did 700 damage, said Chrome Trigger did 1400 damage. So just in general, inconsistency, major inconsistency by Yakuza, especially with like the top 3 teams so far inside of the upper bracket. And once again, I'm hoping, and I can almost guarantee that will change, at least in some degree. I'm just hoping it'll be a much bigger impact in comparison to what will probably happen in reality. EK though?
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, I was playing that game, and it felt like we were struggling a little bit in the beginning, and Yakuza, they got some rounds on us, and then I think near the end we just started winning like 4 rounds in a row, 3 rounds in a row, and we basically closed it out. And another thing I like to add about that game is too, of Pleb did a little loophole on the rules, and I mean, I guess I should say it's Render. I don't know, but officially, I guess Render was playing that game since his Discord name was Render and in-game name was Render. He even changed his profile to even make it seem like it as well. But that's probably something we should look at in the rules. But
Yeah, definitely.
yeah,
It was a different render. You wouldn't know. He goes to
Yeah.
another school. It wasn't our render.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the chat, and Gravy was saying Render
Yeah,
was
I saw.
Render was pleb or doing drugs, not him. Keep him
One
on
of
keep him on the
the two.
drugs. Keep him on the drugs. EK is what he's saying. But yeah,
Yeah, for real.
It's one of the two. I mean, yeah, I think this is pretty much it for upper bracket. We'll circle back to it, or rather upper division, upper league. We'll circle back to it once we make our predictions at the end. But I think we can look at the scores from the lower league first.
Yeah, I think
So
that's
let's get
a
that
good
up.
idea. We'll transition over into that, and then
transitioning.
see what those
can
scores
find
ended up
it.
doing.
Okay.
And momentarily, take a couple seconds. Just gonna drink
You wanna-
this comically sized water bottle here.
Wait, is the water really big or are you really small?
It's a good question. Probably the water being really big, Boxy. I think you would know better to ask that. But
Probably.
all right, we've got the scores lined up here. I can probably just pull up the other actual like bracket formation of lower league. That way I can see who's technically in first and whatnot. Yeah. Okay. So first, it's tied between Nakadama and Snakes. Wow. Didn't Snakes actually play a 4v5? Did they still win all of their
Yeah,
games in a 4v5?
did.
Wait, did they play 4v5? I don't know. You
Oh
and I were
my
testing.
god.
Their first
Wait,
game.
did
Yeah.
they actually play a 4v5? Oh my god. Okay.
That's
So,
hilarious.
for those that are unaware, Fellow and I were already casting. I think it was Organized Chaos versus Space Rangers. And there were a lot of
Yep.
matches going on at the same time. That's the one that we had on the main stream. We were casting it, and I saw a bunch of pings in the DPL Discord of the captain of Snake saying, "Hey guys, we desperately need one. One of our players' PC just died. Can someone play for us?" And so I was like, "Okay, I guess I'll shout them out on the stream. Maybe someone hops in, plays for them. Is kind enough." Apparently not. Apparently they played a 4v5, and they still won against Orange Grove. If I'm not mistaken. Yeah, like it.
I did not hear any good things about Orange Grove at all. So I guess that makes sense.
Okay,
I
that
hate
was,
to I hate to be the bad cop. Hate to be the bad cop here. But we were talking about OC a couple or OG, not just OC. We did mention Organized Chaos a little while ago as well. Yeah, Orange Grove just did not look that good from what we heard, and this is definitely Exhibit A, losing a 4v5. I mean, it was kind of close, 7-5, but if we go look at their other matchup real quickly, they also lost to Frogs 7-4. So clearly, the only reason why they got close to potentially tying is only because of the fact Snakes were in a 4v5. That's hilarious.
I mean, good for Snakes. What else can you say? 5-7 versus Orange Grove, and then the thing that I find interesting though, it's that they 7-3'd Organized Chaos, and you and I casted a game of Organized Chaos, and they seemed rather strong to me. So the fact that they got 7-3'd by Snakes is still pretty surprising to me,
Yeah.
especially if you consider that Snakes 7-5'd in a 4v5. So I don't know. Interesting.
I was
actually would
watching
love
that
to
game
look
actually.
at the stats.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I was watching the
What
game, the
happened?
4v5, and I was casting
Okay.
Gravy, and it was interesting.
Gravy did amazing.
We were
by
talking
the
about
way.
how like evenly it was, because like it would go back and forth, like 1-1, 1-1, one team would win, the other team would win. But like it would be so weird to cast because like there's 4 people on that team going against 5 people who have like less than 100 matches. So it's like a weird balance. You have one team with less players, another team with more experience. So it's like, okay, how's this gonna go? But that was awesome. And another player I would like to shout out. I know Gravy saw this too. It's like Doshik was really popping off with the snipers. He would get entry like 3K entries all the time, and that really pulled him
Okay.
in. But yeah,
I mean,
Man just
props
really
to
wanted that
Doja
dub.
then.
Yeah, we know
Apparently.
Doshik too, so shouts to him. Yeah,
Oh yeah, one of the nicest people when you casually just randomly run into.
Yeah, he's pretty
But
cool.
okay, so let's go over the standings again. I think we're getting lost in individual matches. Let's just do standings first, and then we'll do matches one by one. So we have
Yeah.
Nakadama first, 2 wins, 0 losses. We have Snake second, also 2 wins. I guess they're technically tied unless it's a round score differential. Yeah, it is. Okay, so Nakadama first, Snake second, RevSport International are third with, get this, 1 bye and 1 draw. So they've only drawn 1. They played 1 game. It was 6-6, and the other one they got on a bye. They came in third. Then we have Due Process Baddies and OCN Frogs and 17 S. Actually, just Frogs, Organized Chaos, and Due Process Baddies, excuse me, who have won 1 and lost 1. 17S with 1 bye and 1 loss. Space Rangers, which we've casted twice with 1 loss and 1 draw. And then Orange Grove, which, we've already talked about them. They just lost both their games. First to Snakes, second one to Frogs. So.
yeah. I mean, do you guys think there's any like, you guys had any expectations for these teams?
I was actually gonna ask that at the end with predictions, because I was also wanted to do this for the upper leagues, but if you want to talk about now.
Oh no, I was just talking about like did you expect any different
For
result
lower.
from the last weekend?
Okay, let me go through all the matches.
Like
Go ahead, fellow.
yeah. I would say I think personally, Nakadama being top doesn't really shock me. I guess for Snakes, I haven't seen them play as a full team. Like I've played with Doshik like individually, and in like a 10-man aspect, he didn't do that great. But you're in a 10-man. Like you can be playing with anyone. You can be playing with me, and I suck. I'm a commentator for a reason. You can be playing with Gals as well, who is absolute vibe, but doesn't communicate, which is like a really bad thing in like a team-based game. But he'll do damage. That's totally fine. Like you're gonna get like random aspects that aren't always going to be good, or you'll get like stacked up against like half of GB and then half of Bingus in the same team, so you just get clobbered no matter how good you are. So there's always something to look at from that point of view, and maybe you're just like uncomfortable in that kind of environment. That's totally fine. So in a more controlled environment, I guess we have the Snakes do much better, and I'm really hoping to see more from them when they get like a whole 5-man group, because even with 4 players, they're in second. And I think it's only because of round differential. Like Nakadama had like 2 clean sweeps, 14-2 was their whole score line, where the Snakes had like, I believe it is 14-8. That's like the only reason why they're not even first. It's just simply because of round differential. So pretty impressive stuff by them. I want to actually go try to find their stats real quick. Here we go. Organized Chaos versus Snakes. I think if we look all the way down, well, they did have actually 5 people at least in this game. Maybe the first match they played, they didn't have a 5th, but they had a guy called Jart who had a whopping 600 damage, best weapon with the Ingmar. But everyone else played like really consistent, like 8-Kit, Candy, Shlowy, Doshik, 1100, 1200, 1300, 1600. Like just again, like I mentioned, consistency in that team-based environment. Good stuff, Snakes.
Yeah. I don't know. I know like just over half of these teams. I think we had 9 compete, and I know Nakadama, I know Snakes, I know Due Process Baddies, I know Organized Chaos and Frogs. I've also kind of ran into, I think, Rev, definitely Space Rangers as well. 17S and Orange Grove are completely new to me. I really don't know anyone. I think one of Argo's friends that was playing R6 for us the other day is an Orange Grove. I'm not 100%, but Nakadama, they are where I would have expected them to be. Snakes, I think, are a little bit higher. Due Process Baddies are around where I expect them to be. Organized Chaos being 5th is lower than what I expect them to be. Frogs, again, I think are kind of where I'd put them before we began. And then, like I said, the other teams, I wasn't really sure about going into this. What do you guys think? Like, what would have been the standings that you would have predicted before going into all these matches? Maybe.
EK?
Well, I didn't expect Snakes to do so well, but they
Yeah.
do well. Although it was a little bit hiccup at the beginning. But another team I thought that was going to do a lot better was Due Process Baddies. I didn't think they would. I thought they would at least get 4 rounds on Nakudama, but they didn't do that. And they also almost lost to 17s, which is a
Ooh,
little bit
that's
surprising
true.
because I haven't seen 17 scrim at all, but I've seen Due Process Baddies try to scrim a bunch, and they've been playing the game a bunch, so that's a little bit surprising to me as well. Organized Chaos, I've scrimmed against them. They're still a developing team, but they should be strong. And considering they lost to Snakes, I don't know. I'm a little bit confused on why that happened, but
Yeah.
yeah, that's all the
There's
expectations I had.
two things. So first of all, due process baddies, they went through two roster changes just recently. I think they lost two of their players that were really, keeping the core together. So I think that was what dragged them down a little bit. Organized Chaos also ended up playing with a sub, and it was a sub that we're familiar with. It was Cosmilk, who, produced for Fellow and I before. We've hung out with him a few times. So Cosmilk, as far as I know, he's not a starter. He's a sub. And Keegan, the one of the best snipers in the lower division, I would dare say, after seeing him snipe, was missing. So I think that was a huge piece of organized chaos that just wasn't there, and they were forced to play with a sub. And I'm not saying Cosmilk isn't good, but I'm saying not having Keegan to push organized chaos over the top ended up punishing them quite a bit, and I think that's why they played 7-3 against Snakes as well.
Fair enough. I think might as well go mention a couple other lower bracket teams as well. I was going to go talk about Frogs for a second as well. I want to go back to their old style line I was looking at like religiously for a couple seconds. Wasn't the Nakadama one, but there's still plenty of good stuff to mention there. Like we didn't really have like a lot of outstanding play on that Nakadama game, but then again, it's like a much more organized team for Nakadama in comparison to Frogs. But the game they actually won, I cannot find it. Apparently, I don't know how to read anymore, guys. This is so unfortunate. Where there it
What
is.
are you looking
Frogs
for?
versus Orange Grove.
Oh
It's really embedded in there, man, inside of
yeah.
coordination. So we had really good performance by all of them, to be honest. I mean, having 800 damage still for like the lowest one there is honestly fine. Asbo doing very good with the saber. I feel like just general enabling for Asbo is going to be like your golden ticket, especially if he's like your saber and also your mop player. Like I know EK isn't like your top damage. You're not the top damage dealer most of the time for your team, but you can pack a hefty punch for the saber and mop, especially if you're going to be the entry player. It just kind of depends on your like general play style. So having more or less like maybe having your entry player instead try to go for those heavy punches, that could be a really good idea instead. Um, but I feel like they were just a bit confused on who should be playing what role, and that's going to come in time. Like we had dynamic on
Absolutely.
mop. I don't really know what dynamic actually prefers, but I feel like that might be like a better role yet again for like Asbo, and then having dynamic instead of like some sort of AK pick could be a better option. Just kind of spitballing on there. I know I was gonna go and like watch the VOD back with them to kind of to see more improvement possibly, but I
We'll
wasn't
get
able to
to that.
catch a whole lot on that. But again, yeah, role changes. I think that's a big thing to mention for like a lot of teams in the lower bracket. These are kind of like just feeler games for the first few days, but like just the Frogs match is just a really good example of that to put on paper.
Yeah. I mean, just you were speaking about dynamic on snipers. I'm pretty sure she really wants to snipe, so I think she will stick to sniping for the time being. And as far as filler games go, I absolutely agree. That is something that most teams are using them for. But again, with this short format that we're currently introducing, that we're trying out, you cannot afford to have really many filler games. After week one, you gotta pull all the stops and you gotta actually start, playing at your highest, because otherwise you're going to be too far behind. You can take 1 or 2 weeks to warm up, because by the third week the placements may, or the standings may already be hard locked. So there is that.
Yeah, keep in mind the top two teams go to relegation, but even though you don't make top two, lower league teams still can have a chance at relegations if they compete in the qualifiers. And basically, if you get top two in qualifiers, you go against those top two teams that made it made it 2 relegations from that top 2 from lower league season. But yeah,
Mhm.
it's not the end of the world if you don't make top 2. Top 4 maybe maybe the best way to get in, but
Yeah,
yeah.
that's actually a question I was gonna ask you. I was gonna be like, EK, can you kind of explain the format a little bit for us? But I guess you kind of, beat me there. So there is that. Are we done with the matches in lower bracket? I think we
Yep.
mostly are. Okay, so we're gonna do predictions for next week in just a second. But the first thing that I want you all to do is, if anyone has any questions or any topics that you want us to cover, put them in chat and tag either Fellow or EK or me so we don't miss them. And we'll start doing predictions. And yeah, we'll then, wrap it around. If there's any, like I said, questions slash suggested themes, we'll cover those as well. And I think that's probably slowly but surely going to be it for tonight. So are we doing predictions for upper first?
That's probably a good idea. I think we'll get the most unbiased person out of the way first. EkaZo, what do you think are your predictions going to
Mm.
be moving into the next week
Oh
for upper
no.
bracket?
All right, I mean, starting from the first game, we have Yakuza versus Rise. I think
Yeah.
that Yakuza is definitely going to take that. I mean, we saw how Rise played this last weekend. I mean, not that great, but I can see some improvement coming, but definitely not enough to beat Yakuza, especially if Yakuza is also improving it themselves from the last weekend. Global
Hmm.
Breakout versus Rise. That's going to be easy for us as well, I feel like. And Gnomes versus Yakuza. I don't know. That might be a little harder one. I know Gnomes is sort of in a weird state right now. They only have 6 players on their roster, so it's going to be sort of iffy on what they can do because like right now they're short on subs. I don't know if they even got many scrims lined up because of that. But yeah,
Hmm.
I think Yakuza would take that one. Might be hard, might be not. I don't know. But LCG versus Gnomes. Gnomes should be able to take that. I think LCG has always been a casual team. I don't expect too much from them. Global Breakout versus Bingus. Gravy himself in chat just said he won't be here this week, so
Oh.
I think it's going to be easy for us as well. But Bingus versus LCG, Bingus should be able to take that. I do have a little higher standard for them in that regard.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fair enough, man. All right. Boxy?
Bella? Okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Okay.
we'll
You
do
do it. You
Boxy
do it.
then.
You
Me.
do
Do
it.
do right to left, I guess. As I point away
Okay.
to my hard left, of course. Yes.
Okay. Well, so I mean, I pretty much agree with the Kazo on Yakuza versus Rise. I do think Yakuza are, kind of settling in with Jet, who's their newest addition, and I do think they're gonna slowly improve. Rise will as well, and I said that earlier in a Discord conversation. I still am, open to giving Rise the benefit of the doubt, but if they don't change something soon, they will get eliminated at the end of the season. I'm sorry. There's still room, to right the ship, but the window is very fast. It's closing very fast. Excuse me. English hard. So Yakuza versus Rise, I do think it's gonna be a 7-3, 7-4 for Yakuza. Global Breakout versus Rise, I say 7-1 to 7-2 for Global Breakout. Gnomes versus Yakuza is interesting. I don't know. Heart says Gnomes. Head says it could be a draw-ish. It really depends on who pulls up and who shows up, personally that day, performance-wise. So either draw or Gnomes? Question mark. I'm gonna get burnt at the stake for this one. LCG versus Gnomes. I do think Gnomes take it probably 7-3, 7-4. Global Breakout Bingo. That is the match to watch next season. I think Global Breakout can take it 7-5, but a draw isn't out of the question. And then LCG versus Bingus. I do think that Bingus takes it without question. LCG maybe gets 2 rounds. Let's say 3. I'll be generous.
Fair enough.
So, fella?
I think mostly what you said is pretty on the money, to be honest. Yakuza, I think they'll beat Rise. I think DPL will beat Rise. Um, I don't really know how I feel about Yakuza though, because there's that general inconsistency. Like the top 2 teams of Bingus and GB, like they just had completely different stat lines as well,
Mm-hmm.
except for terms of like how many rounds they lost. I think they were both 7-4 roughly, give or take, on those last games. I can go look at the stats right here actually to go tell me if I'm correct or not. Yep, 7-4 for Bingus, and yep, 7-4 for GB. So I was correct about that. I just had to try to remember visually about how those rounds went out. Yeah, I don't know. If they remain as inconsistent as they are now, then it actually could be a Gnomes victory. But drawing contention, especially if those problems do get fixed, is definitely on the talking board here for sure. Gnomes will definitely beat LCG. I think, depending on who fills Gravy's role as like that aggro player, if that doesn't get resolved, then we might have GB beat Bingus. But I still think it'll be a very close game, like at very least 7-4. And then Bingus will definitely beat LCG no matter what, really.
I
Okay.
have a weird feeling.
Yeah.
I have a weird feeling that there's going to be an upset in our predictions because that always seems to
In-
happen
on
every season.
Which match?
Yeah, you guys
Yeah,
love the
I don't know
troll.
which
You
match
guys
it's going to
actually
be.
love the
I don't know
troll.
which match it's going to be.
We do a little bit of trolling. LCG Revenge Tour. They take out both Gnomes and Bingus next week. LCG on top? Question mark. Probably not, but I'm all here for it if it ends up happening. So I think that's mostly it. I also think there aren't any real suggestions / questions in chat. I don't know. We tried something new today. I hope we keep doing it. We're probably gonna, switch the time schedule a little bit. Maybe we'll be doing it before matches on play days instead. We want to do in the future is also, maybe have some clips brought up from the actual matches themselves to discuss. We honestly didn't have the time to really prepare those. And you can help us with those. When you're, already watching those matches, just press the clip button so that we don't have to go through every single VOD of every single game every week. And you can. Did I freeze?
No, you
No?
didn't.
No.
Just
Just
what
the
what you
camera?
said was very
Okay.
funny to me.
Okay. You were laughing. I was like, oh god, I'm frozen again. But
No.
yeah, you can really help us out with just clipping stuff so that we have stuff to show on stream because it's super time consuming for 2 or 3 people to go through, I don't know, 15 matches every week. So other than that, and feedback is always appreciated. I also appreciate fellow EkaZo for being here with me. And I think we're still gonna wrap it up. So EK, closing thoughts?
Oh, I was going to say, yeah, I looked at the past 24 or past 7 days on the main channel for clips, and there's only 4 clips, and all of them are unnamed, so not very good. But I hope we can get more clips going. It could be a prod issue as well, because I know prod is not doing very well in terms of people, and we're not able to get those highlights in or FPV going very well. But hopefully we can resolve that. But yeah, we're aiming to do 12 p.m. East on Saturday, right like an hour before the first matches start, so then we can get a good transition into the matches after a good recap. But yeah, that's all I gotta say about that, fellow. You?
Yeah, no, there will definitely be more structure. It's kind of like just setting the bar. Thankfully, more on the lower end. We'll have like actual time to go and like clip and all that. Look for something to talk about perhaps for next week. And then we also get to see just more gameplay in general as well. This is obviously the first week, so we have all these new teams that nobody's heard of, and like, all right, how are they gonna do? Blah blah blah. Like, I think for not Orange Grow, but there was another team that I just literally never heard their name. Oh yeah, 17s. Like I didn't know any of their players. They haven't played a 10-man at all. They were very new to the community. I was just like, I don't know who these people are. So having more time for them to kind of to put themselves up on that pedestal to be like, all right, this is what I bring to the table as a DP player, yada yada yada. I think that'll be more enjoyable as well, and it'll make this recap process much better altogether too. So all that being said, we're going to go end this stream. Thank you all so much for spending your time here for these last 30 minutes or so, and to see you all again next week for some more DPL action. Have a great rest of your day, everybody.